This is I Don't Want to Fit In podcast. I'm Anung, a fellow multi-passionate artist, author, photographer, poet, writer, and everything I feel like doing. Talking about all the ways we can be creative, from hobbies to full-time incomes. Going over tips and tricks, mindsets, and just the joys of putting what we love out into the world. You can follow me on Instagram at I Don't Want to Fit In podcast and Anung V. Reviewing and leaving comments is always a great and free way to support an artist. So there is an ongoing kind of joke that I know some people have heard before, is that like rich kids, especially like kids of celebrity and everything else, go into some kind of art because they have nothing else to do, kind of thing, but don't actually go into the look into the idea of that, of why do people who have money go into art? Like, why do they have the urge for that? And it's not just because, well, if their parents are artists or their parents are celebrities and stuff like that, that's not always the case. Like, there's sometimes they don't, but it's not that no one looks into the idea is that if more people had space and time to do things, they would create. And that they want to put something out to the world, whether it's something like they want to do painting, they want to do crocheting, make music, do photography, stuff like that. Like, there's actually, like, people don't look deeply into that a lot of people would want to actually create more in life. They actually want to actually have something that's substantial for themselves. They don't want to just be workers. They don't want to just be like a lawyer or a banker or a grocery store bagger, or like all these different things, which again is not a bad thing. It's not like we need those in the world. It's not bad that someone has it. But the thing is, if we actually had the time and the money, like, people aren't forced to be working 60, 70-hour weeks because they have to have extra hours overtime at work or have a second job just to survive. If people actually had more time, like if you actually seen some of these other countries, like in Europe or anything else, when they have more time, more things get creative. Like, there's more beautiful things in their area because they have the time to think of more things to do for themselves. And the thing is that this tells us that art shouldn't be inaccessible, that we shouldn't have all these barriers. Like, there shouldn't be more barriers of people getting into things. There shouldn't be a lack of knowledge out there. There shouldn't be such hidden ways to get into it. And the thing is that also, when it comes to people, when they have the money, they have all this access. Especially when it came to when earlier in life, like 90s, even beforehand, like kind of in the early 2000s stuff too, that this was before like the internet really blew up with people sharing their knowledge. Now, like, I didn't know in the early 2000s of how to get into like podcasting. That I didn't have the option to have a phone or an iPad or even just a simple camera on a laptop to record stuff. Like, I do have that now, and that actually gives me the option to have my own videos, whether or not I put it online, but like being able to have your own videos to remember things by. Like, what I still remember with my mom only having like a few pictures when she was younger because they didn't have the money to have a camera. It was so hard sometimes, especially they lived out kind of in the country, of paying to have their photos developed. That's how it was before. And the thing is, it's like newer artists are now making sure that there are other options for people to consume their content. Like, before, it was you had to watch TV. Like, now there's so many options. Not even just the beginning of the internet, there wasn't as much for social media. Now there's so much out there. Like, before, you had to have a record deal. You had all these different things to be somewhat big when it came to like making music. And now there are people on TikTok who actually became big artists because it went viral. People enjoyed the song, they shared it, they used the music in their own videos and everything else, and that got them other options and everything else too. But also, there's so much more out there for people to be independent. Like, you didn't have to have a big corporation, a big business to guide you the way or do all these things for you so you can actually do it. Like, there are ways to be independent with the music makers. Like, I self-published my own books. I've made products where like you can go on Etsy and sell your stuff. There are like a Shopify shop you can do on your own website. It's so much easier to put things out there on your own. Like have my own website. I tried it in the early 2000s and that was so freaking hard for me. Like it was just even getting a blog post written and then all the different like little steps to it just was a lot. There was too much for me to it was hard for me to keep up. Well, now I run two websites, two podcasts, and two websites and everything else. Like I write for several different things. I do fantasy as well as poetry as well as nonfiction. Like I can do all these things on my own, and I actually, because I have the space. Like I've been lucky and I worked hard over the years. This took more than 10 years in the making, like 15 or so of me getting myself into a position where I can work from home and I can make enough. I'm out of most of my debt and everything else that I can still create. But I also have the knowledge that I learned as well as the information and the way to actually get my stuff out there. And the thing is too, like all this stuff, like there's so much free stuff out there. Like there's so many different groups out there. You can look on YouTube. There's like a lot of things on like TikTok and Instagram. There's other blog posts and other websites that just have stuff out there to teach people for things. Because the thing is, like, when it comes to some of these stuff, like it's hard for people to get connected with other people. But now there's other ways to be able to connect with people. There's other ways to just be a fan. But also we give people options to have like levels of how they can interact with us as creators and everything else. Like you have your free stuff, you have your social media, you have freebies out there, like if you have like products, digital things, and everything else. But then you also have levels of like whether someone has like an e-course that can be really expensive, but then maybe a little lower is a book, a little lower than that is a workbook. There's all these different things that we have so much more options for. It's so many free platforms that it's easy to do. But also there's ways to actually make it so we can get better. Like I have a professional mic. I actually have professional recording equipment for my podcast, which makes it easier for me to do video because I mean, I do video and the sound's good, but having a microphone and professional recording stuff makes the sound better because I just, with the editing and everything else, which a free program out there, which I have, it's free source. There's so many different options out there you can do for free. You can do slightly better, but people show you and teach you how to find these things and how to use them. Like I actually had all these different groups out there. I've had other businesses and everything else show me all the options before I'd made my decision. Yes, it was a bit expensive, but I had the time to just be able to do it. But I was able to, before I literally recorded my first couple seasons of like the Introverts Bubble, I recorded on an iPad with a Apple microphone. Like it was a decent microphone, but it only cost me like $15 from online. So that was not a barrier for me. And I used the free program on there to just record and do all this stuff out there. It's because a lot of stuff I've done has been self-taught. I've self-taught myself on podcasting, editing, marketing, doing videos, formatting books, writing books. I've had time and the wherewithal to be able to pay someone else to do certain things for me. But I've always done it myself. And I started off when I had no money and had no options to get help before. I could still do it myself. I was shown options on how to do things. There was free stuff for me to be able to do it. And it made it so much easier. And the thing is, we all should be able to have that option. Like luckily now, a lot of this stuff with doing art and everything else is not a luxury. And it shouldn't be. Like even trying to get stuff online, like we still, at least in America, still have free libraries. And hopefully enough places around still have, even like in the country, still have the option to their libraries to have the internet, even if you don't have it there. Like there are groups out there too. Great spaces for learning stuff. But like I was going to Women in Podcasting when they had the in-person stuff, which at some point they'll get back to, but they do online stuff too, which teach women, non-binary people, and especially people of color, how to get into podcasting. Like hi Twyla, I want to definitely do a shout out to her. Taught me so much that I was I was actually able to help some of her people do the same thing as well. And the thing is, like, the internet has been admonished so much about how stupid and useless it puts stuff out there, but it's like so many people forget how great it's been for all of us. How it's been able to teach us things. Like, I wouldn't have been able to learn Korean. That's the language I'm like mostly learning right now, because there was never an option for school for me. Especially like in high school, there was Spanish and French for my first high school and middle school, junior high, and then when I switched to a different high school, we had Japanese and ASL. But of course, I only had the option to be able to take one, because you only have so much like free time. And then in college, you got a few more options, but sometimes it was just, again, the time, the money to be able to do it. But now I have a little more time. The internet's made it so much easier. I've picked back up working on my French, because I'm still kind of intermediate beginner depending on like certain subjects. I'm not very good at it, even though I learned French for 7 years. I'm not great at it, but still, I'm learning Korean all online. Now, I've had great programs out there I was being able to do. Like, the internet has given us such a wealth of knowledge. And the thing is that it also has stopped some of these groups, these businesses and everything else to not gatekeep things. Like, it's opened up so many doors for people. And the thing is, like, it's just so much free. And that's kind of things that we want to be able to have, is just the free. And honestly, also, it gives us kind of the option, like, where you want to try something, you don't have to buy. There's, again, free options. Like, there's the video, photo editing. There's programs for recording online. There's options for doing like Canva is really good for graphics and everything else. Like, those all stuff is free. But it's also, when it comes to certain things that take like physically equipment, there's so many options out there for renting it. Like, there are ways you can rent camera equipment. You can rent a vehicle for certain things. Like, if you want to learn how to try things, like, you can spend a little bit of money and still be able to work on it. So again, having a little more money, having more space and everything else, if people actually had that, they would do more art. Like, I know so many different people who can't even do that right now, who would like, oh yeah, I would love to be able to get a better camera to just either take better pictures of their family. They want to have videos to be able to put up and share with everyone else. I know someone who would love to be able to do more painting, but all she can afford is like cheap stuff she can get on like Target or like Michael's and everything else. And so they can't do too much. They can't really get better because they don't have the time and the money to do it. And the thing is, there's so much more we can work on to make it so it's less of an access problem, less of a barrier for people to get in there. Like, there's still much more we can pull down to make it easy and accessible to more people. Because the thing is, like, there's so much out there that we can do. Like, the people kind of, you hear stupid things when people say, like, well, yeah, if this person wasn't around, then what if they were the cure to cancer? Like, if you actually had people to give people the option to expand their minds, to try new things, the person who's already here and who's alive could do better. Who could make that next great American story? Who can have that next great TV series, that next documentary that could blow our minds with like the truth of something else, but also have the cure to cancer or something like that. So honestly, I'm excited that more people get the option. That's my thing too. Like, with my platform, I want to have it so people have the option to be more creative, be artistic, because they want to, in whatever form they want. Like, I'm never going to be a painter. Like, I like painting kind of as like a fun thing, but that's not my drive. But I would love to be able to still have the option for it. I love being able to do my podcast. I love being able to do my photography. I love being able to write. And now that I have the time and the space to be able to do so, like, I want that for more people, because I am happier for it. I want more people to be happy, and I want more people to be content and fulfilled in their lives. And I feel like art does that for us. As humans, art is fulfilling, art is freeing. And more people should be able to have that. And it shouldn't just be a barrier or a luxury for people who have a lot of money. Which I'm hoping with having a free podcast, with having videos up and everything else on my website, that I can teach people, I can give people the options, I can help them with their mindset and just steps that they can do to be in a better position to do this, but also to have just a better outlook of it all. Because it should not be a luxury. This should not be, we should be all be able to have the option to have all these fun, great things in our lives.